Hi everyone. In this video, I'd like to talk about core beliefs. What are core beliefs? How do we develop them? And how influential are they over our lives? How do we know what they are? And how do we eventually change them? So we can start to live life in a way that we can reach our full potential. So what are core beliefs? Core beliefs are beliefs about ourselves that we hold to be true and factual. So we might think something like, I'm unlovable, or I'll never have any money, or I'll never find a long-term partner, I'm crazy, or there's something inherently wrong with me. Things like this can be core beliefs. And how do core beliefs develop? So they develop primarily in our earlier years, especially through our relationship with our primary caregiver, generally the mother, and then also other parental figures around. And we can look at attachment theory to show how our core beliefs are developed in that first year. So I have a video which is called Attachment Theory and Narcissistic Personality Disorder. And this is about how our relationships with other people and what we expect from those relationships and how we expect our needs to be met or not are established in that first year. And then studies have shown that the attachment style people have in the first year continues throughout their lives. So in that first year then, if we have a narcissistic parent who's our primary caregiver, then we're going to develop beliefs about ourselves, aren't we? That we don't get our needs met. Mummy's always angry with me. And then there's something wrong with me because mummy doesn't like me, or mummy's always angry. Or there's the knowledge of if mummy gets really angry, she ignores me, and this feels really dangerous for a child, doesn't it? So core beliefs then developing in that first year are things like, if I don't do what mummy wants, I'm going to be abandoned, my needs don't get met, my needs aren't important, then somehow there's something bad about me, I'm a bad person, I need to be different to get love, I can't be myself, there's something about myself that's unacceptable or repulsive or disgusting. Some people have these feelings about themselves. We have these core beliefs, some of which we're aware of and some of which we're not. So let's say, for example, with the feeling disgusting. So some parts of us might feel disgusting. Some other parts of us are going to think, there's nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with this situation, but, it's confusing. I don't understand what it is. Of course, in the early years, these are going to be all feelings, aren't they? There's not going to be a narrative or an understanding, a thorough understanding of what's happening. It's going to be lots of feelings that we're trying to make sense of. And these feelings then become our core beliefs. So, for example, with shame, I also have a video on shame if you'd like to have a look at that. Shame becomes a core belief, that there's something wrong with me. There's something, maybe it's a feeling of I can't put my finger on it. There's something wrong. I don't know what it is. And people can feel that kind of vagueness about it. And then other people can feel feelings of shame a lot. So everyone's different and everyone has different defenses and also different relationships with themselves in terms of how much they suppress and how much they're aware of. So it's case by case, isn't it? Everyone's an individual and everyone's experience is different and everyone's adaptation to that experience is different. So core beliefs are shaped in the early years and they're things about ourselves that we believe to be true. And because we believe them to be true and because they've been with us for so long, often we don't even question them. It's just the truth, isn't it? It's just me. That's what I'm like. I can't change it. I am the way I am. Lots of people say things like that, don't they? So these core beliefs are established in the early years. They become ingrained in us and solidified. We believe them to be true. So what can be really beneficial for us when we're healing from trauma and we're healing from coming from a narcissistic family is to discover what our core beliefs are. So some of them might be close to the surface and we might be more aware of them, like something like I hate myself because I'm no good at anything, something like that might be a thought that you have. And then there can be other things that we're not aware of consciously because it's buried in our subconscious. So then in that case, we can look at clues in our behaviours. So we can say, how come as soon as I get any money, it's gone? It's gone really quickly. And then we think, oh, I'm just bad with money, or, money burns a hole in my pocket. This is a common expression, isn't it? But what that actually means is as soon as people have got money, they just want to get rid of it. Why, So this can be a clue that perhaps there's an underlying core belief that I'll always be poor. I don't deserve to have money because I'm a bad person. Our behaviours are often rooted in quite dark beliefs about ourselves. And because these dark beliefs feel so horrible, we protect ourselves against knowing that they're there. So this can be why we have core beliefs that are quite deeply buried. So all our core beliefs are going to be rooted into events that have happened in our childhood in some way. Perhaps some we're just automatically born with because there is going to be elements of nature and nurture here. We're born with our inherent character and then life changes us and experiences change us, don't they, as we adapt to those. And how much do core beliefs influence us? So they're going to influence everything, aren't they? So if we have a belief that I'm unlovable and no one could ever love me, this is going to influence our relationships, isn't it? So if we have a partner, we're going to expect them to leave us. So this can be rooted as well in having a disorganized attachment. So that attachment video as well is relevant in understanding these things in our relationships with others. We have an unhealthy attachment to other people, an unsafe attachment to other people. And then this means that this shapes all of our relationships in that way. So we're always feeling that we can't trust people. People are going to leave us. We feel nervous of being close to people. And yet we long to be close to people. In the case of expecting to be abandoned or a fear of abandonment, then we might find ourselves in a place where we're questioning our partner all the time. Where have you been? What have you been doing? What's that new person in the office like? What do you think about them? You're always exploring for if they're attracted to someone else, who else on the landscape might be a threat to your relationship. You might think you need to watch what they're doing all the time, know where they are. You might check their phone. So there might be lots of arguments with them that are born out of these feelings of insecurity and jealousy. And then there can also be aspects of ourselves as well that think it feels less painful if we're going to push them away before they can push us away. So there can be lots of sabotaging of the relationship, creating arguments, subconsciously, not always consciously, wanting to be alone because it feels too intense to be with them, feeling as well, what's wrong with them if they're with me because there's something wrong with me, so there must be something wrong with them as well. There can be all kinds of things going on, but this is all coming from those core beliefs that you have, and then this is influencing everything. This is influencing your thoughts, your behaviours, what you're doing, your relationships with other people, your relationship with your partner. Often we can find ourselves pushing our partners away to the extent that they do leave us. And then this confirms our core belief, doesn't it? But these behaviours feel kind of uncontrollable, don't they? So we're kind of having these core beliefs and then we're stuck in them, trapped in them, while we don't have awareness, self-awareness. So what am I thinking? Why am I doing this behaviour? What is it rooted in? Why do I think this way? What are the underlying beliefs? Are places we need to get to in our understanding. So core beliefs influence everything and they shape our lives then. So our beliefs come to be true. We manifest them in our lives as true. So you may have heard of the idea of the self-fulfilling prophecy. So what we believe to be true creates our lives and creates our future. So as long as you believe you'll never have any money, you probably won't. And as long as you believe that you're not capable of achieving anything, you probably won't achieve what you want to achieve in life, because that belief in itself can stop you from trying. So we can see that our core beliefs shape our ability about what we're able to manifest in our lives and how successful our lives are in terms of whatever is important to you. So financial success, relationship success, personal success, career success, all those things, whatever is important to you and what you want to achieve can be hindered by negative core beliefs. But that potential to achieve all those things will be achieved when you realize what core beliefs you have and question them, pick them apart. Why do I think this, and is it true? Is this a fact? Is this an emotion? Or is this an opinion? So what can help with that is Socratic Thinking. So there's a really good article on a website called lifelessons.co, and it's critical thinking, the Socratic method. So what is the Socratic method? Why use it? How to practice it? How to ask Socratic questions? And 6 types of Socratic questions. So it's named after Socrates, and it's a dialectical method of inquiry that uses questions to clarify and unpacks one's beliefs, to understand the assumptions, evidence and reasons used to support them, and to expose any contradictions, inconsistencies and fallacies in one's thinking. It makes you active in your thinking rather than passive. It improves your critical thinking skills. It improves your questioning abilities. It determines your extent of knowledge on a subject. It encourages intellectual humility by making you aware of the limits of your knowledge. It makes you aware of the implications and consequences of your beliefs. How to practice it. The person should be a truth seeker, someone who's genuinely curious to know if they have good reasons to believe what they do and is willing to take the time to unpack their beliefs and to think things through. So not intellectually lazy. Intellectually honest, someone who is willing to answer questions honestly and to admit when they don't have good reasons to support their beliefs and when there is a contradiction or inconsistency in their thinking. So how to ask Socratic questions. Ask open-ended questions respectfully with a genuine sense of curiosity. So this is important when we're asking ourselves questions, because if we're kind of hostile or angry, then we can trigger a defense in ourselves. It's going to block us from being able to see the answers. So it's asking ourselves a question and then waiting for us to be ready to give ourselves the answer, if that makes sense. Sometimes we might get an answer quite quickly. Sometimes it's going to take time, because we're going to have, especially when we've come from a narcissistic family, layers of defenses covering things about ourselves, which can be memories, feelings, and beliefs as well. Why do I believe this? You're protecting yourself from why you believe it. So why don't I have any money? Why have I never got any money? Because deep down there's that pain of the feeling of you don't deserve to have any, you're worthless. It can be feelings of worthlessness. This is really painful. So everyone's different, as I said. Some people are more in touch with some feelings than others. So we're all individual. But we can look at our patterns of behaviours, and especially if it's something we keep doing, and then why do I always keep doing this? Why does this always happen to me? Identifying patterns and then looking for the beliefs that are underneath those patterns. And often it's going to be painful stuff. It's rooted in really deep stuff like fears of abandonment, feelings of worthlessness, feelings of shame, feelings of not being good enough, all pain we've been carrying from childhood. And then importantly, different parts of ourselves can have different core beliefs. So if we've come from trauma, we probably have a fragmented sense of self and different, kind of autonomous defenses. So defenses with a mind of their own. So fight, flight, freeze, submit and attach defenses. And fight is going to have different beliefs from submit. So our submissive defenses are going to think, everyone's right about me. I'm hopeless. I'm worthless. I'm useless. I'm all these ways that I felt when I was younger. That is true. And the hopelessness and helplessness can make those parts of ourselves feel like I'll never achieve anything. Everything they said was true. And then we can have our fight defenses that can think things like, stuff all of you. I'm going to really make a difference in the world. I'm going to break this cycle of horrible abuse. I'm going to be different. I'm going to change things. So we can have opposing parts of us, and we can have inner conflicts and different core beliefs inside us, which can sometimes feel confusing. Sometimes this can make us think things like, oh, I'm crazy, or I'm confused. It doesn't make sense, what the things I think. So it can be that as well as having deep-seated core beliefs, we can also have different core beliefs that are contradictory, belonging to different defenses in ourselves, that by definition are contradictory, aren't they? So fight is going to have different characteristics to submit, and they're probably not going to like each other either. Fight parts of us are going to think, stop being so weak and submissive, but our submissive parts are going to think, so dangerous to assert myself, I better just put my head down and get on with it, do what they say, and hopefully everything will be okay. Be obedient, be compliant. And when we've come from a narcissistic family as well, the behavioural conditioning in our early childhood has been that compliant, obedient, submissive behaviours are rewarded and assertive behaviours are punished. So this is shaping our core beliefs, isn't it? So complicated, it's all complicated, but starting to question everything. Be curious about yourselves, question everything, notice patterns of behaviour. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? I always seem to do this. I wonder why. And we can think of core beliefs as a pair of glasses through which we see the world. So we have our biases of our core beliefs. So we're more likely to believe that our biases are true than not. So we tend to dismiss information that contradicts our core beliefs, and we accept information that confirms our core beliefs. So it can be trying to take off those core belief glasses, so to speak, and to start to see the world in how it actually is rather than what we believe it to be. So we're not unlovable, we're not worthless, we're not never going to have any money, we're not never going to have someone that loves us, all these things, we believe them to be true, so we make them true, but they don't have to be permanently true. And we can question, are those things true? Or is it an opinion? Or is it an emotion that I think is a fact? And then we can change our relationship with it. Or we can change ourselves then. Once the behaviour is conscious, we can then start to make interventions, and we can think, I'm going to change this. I'm not going to be like this anymore. Questions that challenge assumptions. What are you assuming here? Why have you made that assumption? How do you justify that assumption? Can you verify or disprove that assumption? Questions that examine reasons and evidence. Why do you believe that to be true? What led you to that conclusion? What are your reasons for believing that? What's your evidence? Questions about perspectives and viewpoints. You seem to be looking at the situation from insert perspective. Is that correct? Why have you chosen to look at the situation from this perspective rather than any other perspective? Yes, that's really interesting, because we often are looking at ourselves from the perspective of our abusive parent, aren't we? And we're seeing ourselves through their eyes. So we need to change that now, because their stuff belongs to them as to why the narcissist is the way that they are. So we need to unpick those things from ourselves and move into having our view of ourselves, which is based on our opinion. Easier said than done, but this is part of the healing process when you give their stuff back to them. Which perspective is this information presented from? Which other perspectives might be equally valid or worth considering? What might be another way to look at this? So that website's really interesting. Another thing that's important to know is that there's lots of black and white thinking when we have come from a traumatic background. So these can be identified by words like always, never, because this means we're in idealizing and devaluing, and everything's positive and great, everything's negative. So we're looking at the world in terms of extremes, and we're thinking in terms of extremes rather than the middle area, which is going to be grey. And there's also a good website which talks about black and white thinking. It's called planningmindfully.com. 9 easy ways to stop for good. Well, it's not easy. It's going to take months to be able to change your thought patterns. But so black and white thinking can lead to it being difficult to complete your work, because procrastination, have peaceful relationships, forgive yourself, work with others, and it can negatively affect physical and emotional health. Words that may indicate you are dealing with this particular distortion, which is black and white thinking, include always, never, impossible, ruined, failure, perfect, should, ought to, and disaster. So we can observe the language that we're using as we're thinking, and words like that can be clues to look deeper into where am I now in my mind? Am I in that black and white thinking, or which isn't realistic? Black and white thinking is your biases that are skewed by your core beliefs. So we're looking at the world and at ourselves through those core belief glasses, aren't we? So that's another interesting website with an article on. And there's another website called logicalfallacies.org. So this is really interesting because we're all making logical fallacies all the time in our thinking. Well, no, that's black and white thinking, isn't it? Sometimes we're making logical fallacies as we're thinking. So it can be good to be aware of these, then we can recognize them. So a definition of a fallacy is a misconception resulting from flaw in reasoning or a trick or illusion in thoughts that often succeeds in obfuscating facts or truth. Fallacies we can see all the time in the newspapers, on the news, in commentaries, discourse on society. People use them a lot. So there can be things like appeal to authority. The fallacy of appeal to authority makes the argument that if one credible source believes something, that it must be true. So, if David Attenborough says such and such, then this means it's a fact. But, we can question anyone and what they say actually. Example of an appeal to authority: if the Pope says that an aspect of doctrine is true, then it should be added to the creed since he is infallible. The mayor said that the crime rate is down. The statistics claiming otherwise must be erroneous. So the thought can be, since the mayor is in charge of the city and supposedly aware of the goings on, his statement should supersede statistical data. So then another one commonly used, appeal to emotion. Appeal to emotion. The fallacy of the appeal to emotion makes a claim based on sympathy instead of just or logical grounds. So an example of this would be a child doesn't want to eat something like liver or something horrible for dinner, but their mother tells them they have to think of all the starving children in the world who don't have food at all. The child eating or not eating their food has no bearing on the starving children in another part of the world, so they're unrelated. Almost every commercial is an appeal to emotion, a cereal commercial showing kids enjoying their breakfast with a happy mum in the background. So this makes you link cereal with happiness. Bandwagon fallacy. The fallacy of bandwagon says everyone is doing it. This fallacy appeals to the popularity of something as a means of validating it. A recent study shows 8 out of 10 doctors say acupuncture is an effective therapy, therefore it must be true. Agreement among experts does not necessarily lead to a true outcome. Everyone else is going to attend a 4-year university, so I'm going to do the same instead of taking classes at a local community college. Doing something because everyone else is doing it is not a logically valid reason for taking part in something. That's 3 examples of fallacies, and there's loads of them on here. Gambler's fallacy, this is a good one. The gambler's fallacy is based on the false belief that separate independent events can affect the likelihood of another random event. Or if something happens often, that it's less likely that it will take place in the future. So Edna had rolled a 6 with the dice the last 9 consecutive times. Surely it would be highly unlikely she would roll another 6 on the 10th time. So the previous rolls actually have no bearing on the next roll of the dice. So every time it's random. So there we have a pattern of the same number coming up over and over again, but it doesn't make it more likely that 6 won't come up again. So that's really interesting, isn't it? My sister's first 3 children have been girls. The 4th one is sure to be a boy. So this has no bearing again on what sex the 4th child will be. The chances of the 4th baby being a boy are 50-50. So in conclusion, core beliefs are central to our experience of our life, and it's good to examine the ones that might be hindering us in achieving our full potential. So how do we do this? We can look at patterns of our behavior, things that keep happening, things that we keep thinking, and we can start to be curious about those and pick them apart. We can ask ourselves what our core beliefs are as well, and maybe we'll start to understand some that way that are closer to the surface. And then we can use Socratic thinking, we can learn about logical fallacies, and we can look at black and white thinking. Understanding those ideas and concepts can help us to get a more realistic view of ourselves, of who we are and what we think right now. And then when we make these things conscious, that's when we have the ability to change them. So we can't really change stuff that's in our subconscious that we haven't looked at. So I hope this video was useful to you, and take care. Bye.